Hi, I'm Diane, your host of Epic Conversations, and we are back again with Mark Rowe. He's our special guest of honor. Mark and his wife Lesley are from the UK, and they have 2 grown sons. They've been pastors, they've been involved in church leadership, church planning for over 40 years. They have a powerful resume. Their mission is to share the love of God in word and in deed. They traveled around the world and even to the most remote places and poorest areas as well. They have their own ministry called Demo Missions, and it is a powerful charitable organization. We're going to hear about that today, as well as Mark's journey and how he came to the United States. So this is going to be a good episode. Thank you for joining us. And Mark, thank you for coming back.
It's a pleasure.
And we all want to hear about your powerful, charitable organization and your journey of how all this started and you came to the United States. So tell us about your life.
Yeah, so in the last interview, we talked about how we felt God was calling us to the US. And we had a connection already in the US with Paul Milligan and Greg Moore and Billy Epperhart. We'd kind of worked with these guys. And when I shared with Paul what we were going to do, he said, well, where are you going to go? And I said, I don't know, possibly Australia, because I have a lot of family in Australia, even though we're not Australian. They've been out there 40 years. And Paul said, well, why don't you come hang out with us? And when he said that, I thought, for a couple of weeks, maybe.
Okay.
So after a couple of weeks, we came. We literally arrived with a pair of suitcases each and probably about enough money for food for about 6 weeks. And that was literally it. We gave away everything.
As you had the church.
Yeah, and we sold our house previously and handed everything over, gave away most of our stuff. And so Paul was very kind, said, come hang out with us. We'd visited many times when we'd been to conferences. But I thought we were headed to Australia, but we were doing what God said. He said, wait in faith on me for the next chapter. So we thought, well, we're just going to enjoy and maybe have a bit of a sabbatical, because we've been running hard with the church for at least 13, 14 years. And then the Worship Academy and the business we had, fair trade business, making money for missions. So we were just glad of a sort of a rest. So we arrived, and after a couple of weeks, I said to Paul, I said, well, don't you think we should be moving on now? And he was like, why? Don't you like it here? And I'm like, well, yeah, we love it, but we don't want to overstay our welcome. Hey, we love having you. You stay as long as you like. So 15 months later, in between time, Paul is one of the board members of Wommack Ministries. He is also the leader and the founder of the business school, along with Billy Epperhart. But Paul would be traveling up from Texas. So we were in Texas staying with them at that point.
Okay.
And for about a year. But we would travel up with Paul, do these road trips to Colorado, which was Wommack Ministries at Elkton at the time.
In Colorado Springs.
Yeah. And I would be asked to do some teaching in the worship school, teaching in the business school, teaching in a little bit here in the ministry school, because, jack of all trades, as we say. And that was great. And then one particular day we had a meeting with Andrew Wommack and Jamie. It was just a very informal get together, cooking some steaks out in the, in the yard kind of thing. And Andrew asked, he said, well, man, he goes, what are you guys doing here? So we told him, and he goes, man, you really are living by faith. And I said, yes, we are, sir. And he heard a little bit of our story, and he just turned around in the middle of the conversation and said, would you go to Karamoja for me? And I kind of was taken aback. Now, Karamoja is basically on the border between Uganda and Kenya, and it's a no-go area. Andrew had a guy called Leland Shaw's, who was quite well known, had gone over to Uganda. He married a Ugandan lady, and he used to use a program called the Discipleship Evangelism program. which is a 48-lesson course covering the whole basics of the Christian faith, a marvelous tool. So marvelous that when we used to come over to the US, when we had our church, I found the book at one of the ministers' conferences that Paul Milligan had invited us to, because I needed something to get all our people on the same page. We had about 100 adults in this little church, and we'd started it from scratch. We couldn't get any more in, actually. That was the size of the building. But we used that discipleship program with the whole church over a year. So 48 lessons, 48 weeks, 4 weeks off for good behavior. And we would do that. It transformed our church. So awesome. Andrew found out during our conversation that I'd used the program, and he asked me to go to Uganda, to Karamoja, which was a no-go area at the time.
What do you mean no-go?
Well, insofar as the Karamojong tribes, and there are several, and the Kenyan tribes on the other side of the border, they often would kill each other for the cattle. Oh. They are pastoralists. That means they're like, they have cattle, and they rove hundreds of miles with the cattle to find pasture. But cattle is king. It's their currency. Oh. They give cattle as a bride price, a dowry, and so on and so forth. And so the government had just recently disarmed them at the time that Andrew was asking me to go, and it was not recommended that you go there by the British government or the American government, because missionaries had been killed. But I went there with a student. I prayed about it, and Lesley and I had agreed that it was right for me to go. It felt right. And I did a reconnaissance, fact-finding mission for Andrew, because the guy who'd been doing the discipleship program had passed away, Leland. Oh. There was a small group of Ugandan pastors were just taking the gospel out there, but Andrew didn't know how it was going. So he said, would you go and find out? But he was also struck by the practical needs of the people, how poor they were. And he said, would you go and find out what we can do to help them? So long story short, I went out there, spent a couple of weeks traipsing up the border in this no-go area with a student from the school, a young man called Travis Van Matry, who was awesome. Just the two of us and a team of the AWM, Andrew Wommack Ministries people on the ground in Uganda. And we visited churches, talked to the people, talked to the pastors that were doing the discipleship program. And basically, I put a report together. I wasn't working for the ministry. Andrew just said, would you do this for me? As we were just passing through. I said, yeah, okay. And when I came back, Andrew was so impressed with the report. He said, man, I'd love you to work for me. And the rest is history. So I started a department called DEMO, which was an acronym. In other words, every letter stands for a word. Discipleship Evangelism, that's the program. Missional Outreach, that's the practical side. Demo, demonstrating the love of God, Romans 5:8.
Beautiful.
So we started the demo department. The only thing was, on my first day, Paul Milligan came into my office, which was next to his in Elkton, down in Elkton, and he said, we've been talking and we wondered if you would oversee the international operations for us, because Paul had just been appointed chief executive and he had a lot of work to do down at Elkton to, the ministry was growing so fast, but it needed to go to the next level. And Paul was the man to do that, but he needed, as he put it, a safe pair of hands to travel with Andrew internationally while he saw to the domestic side of things. So that's what I did for the first 2 years with Lesley. We traveled all over the world with Andrew and Jamie.
That's awesome. And you get to see quite a bit when you did that.
But he asked me to set up this department, which I was able to focus on a couple of years later, which was basically giving people the word through the discipleship program and teaching them to fish by giving them practical help.
Didn't you do something with Aquaponics?
Yes, I did, because I was so struck by the poverty and the fact that even if these people, so we drilled water wells, but even with the benefit of water, the soil is so poor and the environment so harsh that I was looking for ways to create a virtual environment within the environment, if you will. And that's where we came up with the aquaponics.
Oh, and how does that work? Just briefly,
aquaponics is basically about using fish and their waste as an organic fertilizer in an enclosed system. So the fish waste gets converted to what they call nitrate, which is fish food, plant food. The plants suck that up and the water comes back around, circulated fresh. So it's a very good way to conserve water, but also to grow food in a hostile environment.
Oh, that's
So
incredible. Now, you moved from there. Didn't you start your own ministry now?
yeah, so it was actually earlier this year. We just felt that we needed to go in a different direction. It was really still doing what we're doing. The ministry had a lot of change going on, and that's right, because no one person's bigger than the organization. So we decided that we would try and continue, because my passion, Romans 5:8, is that God demonstrates, demos,
Yes,
it's a
demo.
short version, his love for us, in that while we were still sinners, blows my mind.
I know.
Christ died for us. I still can't get my head around that, but it's true.
Yeah.
And we want to demonstrate God's love to other people, because as a pastor, I found the Discipleship Evangelism program was a phenomenal tool to disciple yourself, house groups, whole church, which is what we did. And through Andrew Wommack Ministries, I was the director of demo. I worked all over the world, primarily in Central and Eastern Africa. We went right through countries discipling 60, 70, 100 pastors a week. This was a young man that was working with me, Ricky Burge. He was phenomenal, but I was directing him and resourcing him and that kind of thing. So we did an incredible amount in a short space of time. But we got the discipleship program into the prison systems in the Philippines, Thailand, Australia. It's used all over the world through Andrew Wommack's schools and offices. And my wife, Lesley, she came to work for Andrew, overseeing the translations of the discipleship program. And in the last 3 years alone, she's put on something like 33 different languages. She doesn't do the languages. We have proofreaders and translators, but we set up a system. She's almost like a pastor taking care of the translators and proofreaders. And but then she formats and puts it in a publishable format. And we have all these available for people free to use, all 48 lessons. And those languages actually cover 95% of the world's population that we have, 40 in total. You know, there are 7,102 known languages in the world.
Yeah.
But most people speak just 23 of them.
Right, but there's more. But you are saying you also have some free downloads or videos and things for people to
Yeah, the original
watch?
discipleship program, there were videos done by Andrew and Don Crow, who was the co-writer of this. And we wanted to put it in a more accessible format. Now, my son, Matt, who's almost 40, he came to school. He got saved gloriously. That's a whole story in itself. Came to school, became a graduate, and worked with us doing the Aquaponics and with our demo team. When we left and to carry on this ministry, Demo Missions, Matt went back to the UK, and he takes care of all the technical stuff for us and the social media. We want to take the territory of social media, because I believe that's Satan's territory, but it's where the people are. So we're on every type of social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. And we've got all these programs, all these lessons on discipleship available. Matt has done them in full HD, full 4K to download for free. Then we have PDFs with the whole lessons in the foreign languages. We have so many resources. We have Steve Bartlett, a former tutor at Andrew Wommack, doing a 10-lesson series on evangelism. It is phenomenal, and it's all free with the PDF notes at the click of a button to download. Then we have links to other partnerships, other ministries like Andrew Wommack and Charis Bible College, but many, many others that give free resources to people. All we want to do is to help people in their daily walk to grow, but also to help pastors with discipleship and evangelism, because when you're a pastor, you're so busy taking care of the flock, it's not high on your list of priorities. And yet Jesus said, last words before leaving us, go and make disciples of every nation and preach the gospel to every creature. And here's the kicker. He is not coming back until we've done it.
Yes.
So
we got a job.
It's a no-brainer, you know, but we just want to do that free of charge to make these resources accessible.
That's awesome. Now, before we end, can you mention something about your music?
Yeah, when I was in the
too.
UK, I've always been a songwriter, and we ran this thing called the International Worship Academy that my mentor, Chris Bowater, said, you really should do an album. So we did this album And it's all 14 original songs, many of which came out of prophetic prayer meetings. They're recorded. There's all kinds of different styles there, from reggae to rock to Latino and basically a whole booklet. And it was basically a gospel tool. The story is written chronologically. The songs, there's a picture of my son and I. That's him 40 years ago. So, and I wrote the song called Son, but it's a play on words. It's a song about him, but it's a song about Jesus. So it was a gospel booklet. We didn't charge for it. We only asked for donations. I still have a few CDs left, which I'm happy to give people if they contact us. But it's a gospel tool, basically. It's called Ordinary Extraordinary. It's saying if you give God your ordinary, like the boy with the loaves and fishes, God can do extraordinary things. It's just about surrendering to him. And so that's available on our website, on our social media, on SoundCloud for free. All the tracks are there. So everything free.
That's awesome, Mark. Thank you. That is a powerful legacy that you're leaving there too, you know,
hope so.
for people. I mean, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're
It's
welcome.
just so much rich content. And we'll have that. So with Demo Missions, we have that. Well, thank you again for being on the show.
My pleasure.
This is my pleasure too. And thank you for joining us. This has been just a powerful to hear all this wonderful story that's been going on and the work that Mark has done and Lesley, his wife. So we thank you for joining us, and we'll have in the comment section information that you can look into his ministry, download your free things, and donate whatever you want. It'll all be there for you. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, have an epic day in the Lord. Hi, I'm Diane Grubus, and I've started a ministry, and I want to bless you. I'm so excited about it. DianeGrubus.com. Go to the website and check out all the wonderful things that we have in store for you. Have some great epic conversations with some powerful guests and some teachings, free downloads. And we would love to have you join us, love to have you partner with us. We appreciate you and we want to hear from you. So check out the website and thank you.